I'm in a contractual marriage, and I think I've fallen in love with my wife. I don't know what to do. I'm in a very complicated and sad situation. About 4 years ago, my wife, with whom I have been married for 8 years, passed away due to extremely rare complications after giving birth to our second son. I was on a business trip at the time and was completely devastated. When I flew home, it felt like nothing could ever make me happy again. I have wonderful sons. They're now 6 and 4, but it's tough taking care of them. So I asked the sister of one of my friends from the Marine Corps, let's call her Kess, to help. She knew my wife, but they weren't close friends. Kess agreed to help in exchange for housing. At that time, Kess was only 20 and had serious debts due to an extremely abusive ex-boyfriend she had finally left about 3 months earlier. In the first weeks while helping with the boys, she asked to borrow some money for a doctor's visit. Her hands were shaking and she had no insurance. I happily helped. She was simply an angel, cooking, cleaning, and keeping my little family afloat. It turned out she had some neurological disorder, probably caused by repeated abuse. At the time, everything seemed simple. I had good insurance, and she needed medical care. I thought I would never be able to forget my wife, and she was afraid of intimacy. We agreed to get married, but our relationship would remain platonic. She promised not to pass her debts on to me, and we had a prenuptial agreement. I know it was technically fraud against the state, but we were both too broken and needed someone, even if not in an intimate way. The last 3 years have gone even better than I expected. Kess is just incredible. The house is always clean. Dinner is ready every evening when I get home, even though she works nights at a bakery and she's almost paid off her debts. Her condition has improved significantly thanks to excellent medical care. With the kids, she's just a saint, telling them about their mother, showing them photos, taking them out, and even teaching them to read. My 6-year-old just finished kindergarten, and my 4-year-old will be the smartest in his group next year. Sometimes the younger one calls her Mom, but she gently corrects him, saying her name is Kess, and Mom is the angel in the photo above the fireplace. Once she's fully paid off her debts, the kids will go to school, and she save a little money. She plans to study nursing. Our relationship is still platonic, but very warm. I've cried on her shoulder countless times. She's done the same. One night, I was extremely on edge and yelled at her over something trivial. She took my sons to sauna without me. She was obviously scared, but we worked it out, and I even offered to pay for therapy sessions for her. She refused. That was 2 years ago. Since then, we've had minor quarrels, but I've always managed. She seems to sense when I'm hurt, upset, or angry, and she can calm me like no one else can. The problem is, it seems I've fallen in love with her. I've started noticing little things: her scent, her smile, her laughter, the way her eyes light up when she sees me, and how much my boys adore her. On top of all that, she's beautiful, hardworking, and one of the strongest people I've ever met. A few days ago, I almost kissed her after we put the boys to bed, and her goodbye hug lingered a little longer. The other day, she was napping in my bed while washing her sheets, and I wanted to lie next to her, not for intimacy, just to lie together, hug, and kiss her. I don't know what to do or how to bring it up. It's been 4 years since my wife passed away. All I can think about is a quote from a song in A Song of Ice and Fire, where a character says, "When the sun sets, no candle can replace it," meaning that after the death of his true love, no one could ever replace her. That's how I used to feel. But recently, there have been days when my thoughts were occupied by Cass, and I didn't even think about my wife. I feel ashamed about that. I still miss her, but I never imagined I could move forward. I feel both guilty and like I'm betraying her memory. I don't want Cass just sexually or physically. I want to be with her in romantic intimacy, not just as a friend. I don't know how to bring it up. I don't want to scare her or make things awkward, but it's becoming harder to hold back. I thought about inviting her to dinner, just the two of us, to talk about it. But what if she refuses? How can I tell if she has feelings for me? Recently, she had a tough time with the boys. They were restless and uncontrollable, and I brought her favorite flowers. She was overjoyed, hugged me without rushing to let go, and quickly kissed me on the lips. I was stunned. She then skipped to finish cooking dinner and put the flowers in a vase. What did all that mean? Screw it. Just an hour later, you convinced me. I'll tell her. I called her favorite fancy restaurant and booked a table. Her brother agreed to watch the kids and even offered for her to stay at his place if she felt uncomfortable or didn't want to return with me. This morning, she fully paid off her debts. She just sent me a photo of the receipt. Next week is our 3-year anniversary, so this is sort of a prelude. I plan to tell her everything over dessert. I'm nervous as hell. Second edit. I confessed my love to my wife. Everything went freaking amazingly. I just got back home. Love you all. Tomorrow I'll post an update. For now, I'm going to go kiss my wife. Update 1. I just spent the night cuddling and kissing my wife. Yesterday evening started off completely messed up. Our younger son ate, as he said, a huge fluffy spider. Kes wanted to take him to the hospital, even though he was fine. Her brother, let's call him Joe, said he would handle everything and literally pushed her out of the house with the words, "Celebrate getting rid of your debts." She clearly didn't want to go at all. I started panicking. We arrived at the restaurant pretty early, but fortunately there was a free table. She ordered wine, which was strange because she had hardly ever drunk anything since breaking up with her ex, but I thought the occasion was significant. We made small talk, but it all felt strained, and I knew I had to tell her soon. Before the main course arrived, I said I wanted to talk to her about something. She didn't smile and said, "I know. John told me." My heart almost stopped. That son of a... I immediately started babbling, saying how sorry I was that I hadn't wanted her to hear it that way, that I wanted to tell her myself. She shook her head, frowned, and said it was fine, that she just wanted me to be happy, and that I deserved it. I said I didn't want to stress her out or make things awkward, but I had to tell her and see how she felt about it, and that the decision was entirely hers. She looked at me and said, "In fact, it's up to me, and I should do what makes me happy." She said she probably plans to move out when she finishes her program, but promised not to interfere in my life until then. And then I realized something was off and asked, "What the hell?" Joe apparently told her that I wanted to invite her to dinner, to say I had feelings for some other girl and wanted to ask her. Okay, Kes, would it be okay if I asked her out on a date? That's when I realized Joe had set the stage for the most epic pickup line in history. Our food arrived. I ordered the New York with shrimp and pesto, and she had crab claws, if those details matter. I explained that yes, I had started to develop feelings for a woman, but I didn't want to ruin what we have. She said nothing would be ruined, that she still loves the boys and will take care of them and the house. I went on and explained that I wasn't planning to ask that other woman out on a date. She asked, surprised, why not? Then I delivered the coolest line of my life because I was already on a date with her. She looked at me with that same look she gives my sons when they announce things, like, "I'll go to the mall by myself," or "I have a girlfriend named Tammy." Then she looked away, smiled, shook her head, and asked, "Seriously?" I nodded and told her she meant more to me than anyone in the world except my sons, that I love our family and that I had fallen in love with her. She took a sip of wine, rolled her eyes, and said, "About time, damn it, Alex," and I'll never forget what happened next. Maybe it was a move, but I leaned across the table and kissed her, spilling her wine all over her in the process. We didn't care. We'd probably kiss for a minute until she told me to get off because her crab claws were getting cold. After the restaurant, we went for ice cream and kissed a bit more before coming home. Joe was on our couch watching some dumb reality show on VH1 with that smug look on his face. Kes barreled into the house yelling that he'd ruined everything and that now she'd have to move back in with her mom. We let him believe that for about 5 seconds, then burst out laughing. He shook my hand, said the boys were already asleep, and left. I scooped Kes up, kissed her, and carried her to the bedroom, where we kissed and cuddled for like 2 hours until we were dizzy. She's not ready to go further yet. I'll give her as much time as she needs. At one point our youngest came in. He'd had a nightmare. He dragged his puppy, a golden retriever pup, and said the puppy was scared. Of course we let him in. I got up early to make breakfast for everyone. Now I'm about to go kiss my wife goodbye and ask my boss for the afternoon off, so I can spend more time with her while the boys are at school and kindergarten. Sorry, I didn't reply to everyone. I was a bit busy, but thanks so much for all the support. Update 2's a month later. Hi everyone. Hope your workday's going well. Mine's been a total mess, but overall things are great. At first it was a bit awkward explaining everything to friends and family, but most people already understood, including my sons, who act like nothing has changed. I'm almost certain those little shoals knew from the start. Update 2 a month later. Anyway, last night I came home and Kes was clearly off. Dinner burned, no big deal. I'm not much of a cook, but that's not like her, and she'd had maybe 2 glasses of wine. I asked what was wrong because I was obviously worried. She said her asshole ex, the one in his 30s, got parole last week. I freaked out because as far as I knew, she should have been able to testify at that hearing. It turned out the crime he was jailed for wasn't connected to her. I always thought it was. At first they told her he'd be in for a long time, at least 10 years. And she was too scared to testify against him. Apparently he was arrested for some other criminal charge, and while he was in custody he asked Kes to post bond for him. Instead, she asked my late wife for help so she could leave and start a new life. I don't know what to do now. It looks like we don't have legal ways to put him away again. She knows she should have gone to the police earlier and now feels guilty and very upset. I know nothing will happen to her because if he even dares lay a finger on her, I will make him regret it with everything I have. I took time off but promised that even when I'm back at work, my friends will check in during the day. But I don't know how to make her feel safe. I had already contacted my lawyer about a restraining order, and he said there wouldn't be any problems. But Cass was completely shaken, and I didn't know how to convince her that she was safe. I doubt that bastard will appear in her life again, but if he dares, I know what to do. Update for 1 year later. Hi everyone. First of all, I want to apologize for not posting updates sooner. Honestly, I've just been busy with life. Last night, I couldn't sleep, so I was scrolling the internet and wondered how everyone was doing. I logged in and realized that many of you were genuinely concerned about how things were going with Kes, and things are actually going very well. Despite how tough it was last year when Kes's ex was released from prison, she was terrified that he would reach out, and he actually did. I remember that night like it was 5 minutes ago. Someone knocked on the door and our older son answered. The ex asked if Kes was home. She told the boy to go upstairs and looked at me. I understood everything immediately, but there was no fear in her eyes. That asshole apologized, begged for forgiveness, and asked for a second chance. She was so brave. I wanted to kill him, but she said no and told him to leave. He left and tried contacting her a few more times until we secured the restraining order. The last I heard, he moved to his father's place somewhere up north. Around the same time, her brother Joe had a serious accident and lived with us for a while. He's a great guy and one of my best friends, so we were happy to help. Still, it was a stressful period. About 7 months ago, we finally, let's say, consummated our marriage. For those wondering, consummation refers to the first sexual act within a marriage. The boys are fine and happy. Kes got a pretty good job, though I think she works too much overtime, but she enjoys it. We're expecting our first child together in February, and we couldn't be happier. Life is pretty amazing right now. Final update, 1 year later. Our daughter was born almost 2 months ago. Sorry, I didn't update earlier. The pregnancy was challenging, and Kes firmly stated that she doesn't want any more children. It seems 3 kids are enough for us, but everything ended well. Little Teresa was born 53 centimeters tall and 4 kilograms, just as bald as me. She's much easier than the boys, hardly ever cries, and is probably the most photogenic baby in the world. Our youngest son is obsessed with her and constantly tries to help, which isn't as cute as you might think. Joe is also doing well. His back still aches a bit, but he's dating a girl who, as it turns out, went to my school. She's 2 years younger, and he's very happy, so we're all glad for him. Besides becoming a father again, there's not much else to report. Today I'm home with the baby while Kes is busy elsewhere, so I'm available if anyone wants to ask questions. Before moving on to the next story, I'd like to hear your opinions about this one. Personally, I can't help but wonder if this woman might have originally planned to meet up with that guy in real life. Having a former criminal ex, after all, some protection wouldn't have hurt. But the truth is, we'll never know. Then, the story transitions to a completely different situation. My husband, without consulting me, became the legal guardian of his 17-year-old niece with autism and dumped all the responsibility on me. I want to return to work instead of being stuck caring for her full time. 32 months ago, my husband had to become the official guardian of his sister's daughter. His sister died last year, and the niece's father was not in the picture. At first, my in-laws took her in, but they are too old to care for her. Then my husband became her guardian despite my objections, insisting that he would take full responsibility. We had gotten married a year ago after 15 years of being together. I had a successful career in a very physically and emotionally demanding field, and I traveled a lot. We wanted to have children, and I agreed to become a homemaker. A few months after the wedding, I quit my job when I became pregnant. Unfortunately, I had a miscarriage and then his sister passed away. And everything came to a halt. Meanwhile, I got a part-time remote job in a related field just to keep myself from going crazy from boredom. My sister-in-law had been a nurse, but she left her job to take care of her daughter full-time. Her daughter has many challenges: nonverbal autism, several developmental disorders like dyslexia, and severe sensory issues. My husband claims he does most of the work caring for his niece, but that's not true. Since I work from home, practically all the responsibility has fallen on me. She constantly gets angry and throws tantrums. She doesn't like the food I cook, and most of the time she throws it on the floor or at me. My nerves are on edge, and it's emotionally exhausting. Around December 15th, my husband was delayed at work and asked me to make dinner. The niece is extremely picky. Even a slight difference in texture or taste from what she's used to can trigger a tantrum. That day she threw a plate at my feet and I got cut. I started bleeding. I called my husband and demanded he come immediately. He said he couldn't. I went to my room and told him I was done dealing with her. He only arrived a few hours later, and the niece was still crying. He was furious, called me heartless and irresponsible. I told him I'd had enough of their ungrateful behavior and left to stay with my mother until New Year's. He panicked and tried to apologize, but I left. He called me every day, begging me to come back. Eventually I returned. He said that because of my actions, he had to use all his available vacation days to stay with her. He said he was glad I came back. I told him that I had contacted my former company and would return to my old job on Monday. It requires in-office presence and frequent business trips. He asked who would take care of the niece since she cannot be left alone. He had no vacation left, and hiring a full-time nanny was too expensive. I reminded him that he had promised to take full responsibility when he became her guardian. Now it was his problem. As you might have guessed, my family supported me, while his family thinks I am being extremely selfish. That's why I am turning to strangers for impartial advice. Am I the asshole in this situation? Before we continue, here's my opinion. She is absolutely not the asshole. She is right to refuse. If she doesn't want to babysit, why should she have to? Yes, marriage requires compromises, but this isn't a compromise. The entire responsibility was dumped on her. Honestly, in this situation, it might be easier to divorce if he insists on this kind of arrangement. Otherwise, what's the point of a marriage where you only suffer? Update. Many of you asked what happened next, so here it is. Unfortunately, I can't say everything was resolved smoothly. My husband took a few days off work to interview nannies or caregivers for children with special needs. Eventually, he found a good, experienced woman. He hired her for weekdays, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. One day, she told him she couldn't come for a couple of days because of an emergency at home. My husband had an important meeting he couldn't miss and asked me to look after the niece. I refused. Then he secretly took my car keys while I was getting ready, hoping to prevent me from going to work. I grew up with a narcissistic father who constantly used manipulative tactics. I called my husband and told him that if he didn't return within an hour, I would call child services, and when they arrived, I would take a taxi to work. He returned. A huge argument started, and I warned him that if he did something like that again, I would leave and never come back. He apologized and said he was just desperate. The worst happened 2 weeks ago. I needed to go on a business trip for a couple of weeks and couldn't find my passport. I am a very organized person and knew I couldn't have lost it. Ilya called the hotline for such cases. During the search, the passport was found in his gym bag. Theft of a passport is a crime. I was offered to file a report but refused. Another argument ensued. He admitted he had done it on purpose because over the weekend, the social services inspector came by and he knew that I wouldn't stay home even if he asked me to. I kicked both of them out of my house and told him I would call the police if he came near me again. Fortunately, the house is my premarital property. I said that I was filing for divorce. The social worker's visit failed because none of them were actually living in the house at the time. The inspector also knew about the hotline call. Needless to say, they didn't make a good impression. 2 days ago, he came back and said that he now lives with his parents. They have a small 2-room apartment, which meets the social services standards for a child. He started begging me to give him a second chance. He asked if he and his niece could come back to my house temporarily until they find a solution. Otherwise, the state would take her. He said he couldn't afford housing and a nanny at the same time and begged me. I told him I could never forgive what he had done. He knew about my past with my father and still did it. He suggested that we live together and go to family therapy. I told him I could no longer trust him and that it was over. Then he asked if he could arrange for his parents to take custody or even hand the niece over to the state. Would I give him another chance? That day, all the anger I had been holding in for months erupted. I told him that although it may seem like the problem was his niece, it was really about him. He didn't ask me before taking her in. He did nothing to help me. Every time I burned out, he ignored my feelings. He took responsibility without consulting me and dumped everything on me. He chose to take my keys. He chose to hide my passport. I told him that things could have gone differently. The three of us, him, his niece, and I could have adapted and become a family if he hadn't made the wrong choices every time, at my expense. I told him to get out of my house, that it was over, and that I never wanted to see either of them again. I still don't know if I did the right thing. I know many people would want a happy ending, but it turned out the way it did. I haven't started the divorce process yet, but I will soon. For now, I'm taking a break. The past few weeks have been emotionally and mentally exhausting. That's it for now. I'm interested in your opinion on this story. Personally, I think she was absolutely right to divorce, as I said before. If she wanted a divorce, okay, you can't blame her. That said, I think maybe she could have given him a second chance because she already stood her ground and maybe they could have worked things out. Who knows? In any case, now they'll need to find someone else to help. 15 years is not insignificant. If they lasted 15 years together, life together probably wasn't all bad. But again, we don't know the whole story. Perhaps a lot had really built up over the years and this was the only right decision. By the way, I recently read statistics that the longer a couple is married, the less likely they are to divorce. Anyway, I'm interested in your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching the video until the end. Check out our previous videos here. Be sure to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Good luck!